leave you?
It has flown by. We've had such fantastic racing, and having spoken about Julien Alaphilippe and what happened yesterday, I've got to say I'm still a fan. I love watching him race. I love his panache. I love the way he tackles the race. He just rides it for what's in front of him at the time. Doesn't overplan as they roll away into the neutral section at Saint-Jean-de-Maurienne. A short stage, Matt, 126 kilometres, but I'm expecting it to be incredibly intense because the other contenders, they need to ride him out of the jersey today. They can't afford to wait till tomorrow.
Well, you said it over dinner last night. They could outweight themselves.
I feel they waited too long yesterday on the Glibia. They let Dylan Van Baal from Ineos set the pace for a very long time, and then Geraint Thomas asked Bernal to attack to open things up.
So he says.
I even felt it was too late. Oh, they don't ride on instinct at Ineos. They plan things. It's weighing up a situation, but then there's planning into everything. He asked Bernal to attack, and then G tried to go across to him to make his own attack, and that's when Alaphilippe was being dropped. This is Le Cathédrale Saint-Jean-Baptiste.
And this one dates all the way back to the 11th century, and it's been classified as a historical monument since the 30th of October 1906. The foundation of the tower that you can see there, though, that actually goes all the way back to the 6th century. And this cathedral is one of the oldest frameworks in France. Several of the roof trusses have been dated to 1075. So the roof trusses, they have stood the test of time, and you could use the old cliche, they don't make them like they used to. It's also well renowned for its frescoes and its windows, and I know who you want to talk about.
Yep, the man that, well, we haven't got an official prize, but we've started calling it the Scottie Pippen medal for assists, and that is Marc Soler, the man who is at the front of the peloton next to the red car. He has been so good in this tour for Team Movistar.
On the other side of the traffic island, that looks like it could be Tim Wellens, actually, that's trying to go across to Fabio Aru. The flag of Brittany that you see further back down the road, it is blowing a strong tailwind at this point. This is at the back of the race. This is Stefano Rosetto. He's been in lots of breakaways, particularly throughout the first week, and is now definitely paying the price.
That is just a case of on the flat, completely strung out, maximum speed, and suddenly you go pop.
It's back down to 25 seconds already. The best place rider in this group in terms of the overall classification is Dan Martin. The rider in the white colours now going through to the front. He's 34 minutes and 23 seconds behind the yellow jersey of Julien Alaphilippe. So for the Koenig Quickstep, they don't need to chase this group of four, but they need to control the rest of the peloton, so there's no subsequential breakaway like we saw yesterday that swells to 33 with some dangerous riders in it.
And it's not highly likely that riders who are highly placed on GC will make it into that group, but I do want to avoid riders like Kwiatkowski, for example, getting in the group, getting up the road. They become a springboard for the likes of Bernal and Thomas. Attack out of the group, drop Alaphilippe, get across to a fresh teammate in front who sat up and waited, drive it on through. I love the element of team racing in this tour. Movistar have been doing it really, really well. Unable to unseat Alaphilippe as yet. We can see now since yesterday with Van Baal in front, and today how Ineos are riding, they're trying to set up a similar situation.
Trying desperately to do so. They've covered just a little bit over 20 kilometres so far, and the average speed has been 43 k's per hour. Lars Bak has managed to return to the rear end of the peloton just in time for the start of the climb.
And when you've just returned, that is a horrible sight. As we hover above Le Fort du Sapy.
Fortified complex that was built purely for a defensive mechanism. This has itself standing at around about 1,700 metres above sea level. It was built in the late 1800s.
Yep, your heart sinks when you just get to the back of the peloton. You see the sign that says start of the climb, 3.1 kilometres to the top, and it completely strung out like a long snake in front of you, and the pace on. 21 seconds now, the gap to this front group. Aru still trying to get his way across.
I wonder what the emotional response will be from Dan Martin to this attack from Fabio Aru.
Was that Moscon that was trying to...
Well, they're clearly trying to mark the moves. Ineos with a strategy to get themselves into a breakaway. So much support, Alaphilippe. Lots of support for the current race leader. Nibali with a sneaky look across the left shoulder to see what's happening behind.
Still holding strong, 25 seconds, and that group of 4 will be more comfortable on the climb than they were on the flat. Exceptional climbers who have made it into the front group. And this is going to split now, and this will become a big group if they can push this on. Aru, Woods, Bardet. Jack Haig has made it into the move at the moment, and it is splitting behind them.
And it's splitting at the back. This is Kalmajan now who's been distanced. He'll have plenty of company pretty soon.
See Michael Matthews in the background.
Galopin at the front trying to force the breakaway for Romain Bardet.
Stephen Krooswijk has followed this move. He is really quite close to the front. So there'll be a reaction to that. They will not want to let this group go because Krooswijk is up there. George Bennett as well, I spotted. And then Movistar, they're shutting it down. But little cracks and splits all the way down the group.
And Simon Yates was near the front as well for Mitchelton Scott.
Tailwind up the climb. Perfect for these 4.
It's down to 17 seconds because of that reaction, but they're steady. This is gas on, gas off, as the French champion, affectionately known as Wawa, Warren Barguil, is the next to go, followed by Galopin.
But Tony Galopin really struggled in the early part of this tour with the injuries he sustained from a crash in the French Championship. He's starting to come back into form.
He looked so sore in the first week. I grimaced watching him, and I felt uncomfortable watching him.
It was a big call to even start him in the tour, wasn't it?
It's impressive that he's gotten through that first phase, and now he's riding this strongly at the back end. Well done, Tony Galopin. Fabio Aru once again in the white colours behind them. Flick of the elbow for Warren Barguil. Galopin wants the polka dot jersey to be with him. The big K on the move now, that is Ilnaz Zakarin. Or is he on the move? No, he's just rejoining. That's the split near the front.
Yeah, this was the attack that was going at the bottom of the climb, and it did split, but there was some highly placed riders in there. And I saw Krooswijk following the wheels. So that forced the reaction of the rest of the favourites to shut it down.
Galopin, Barguil, just a small advantage over Fabio Aru, who looks over his shoulder, and once again he'll see Michael Woods breathing down his neck.
Now another small gap opening up, so rider on the front of the main peloton, just letting the wheel go, swinging across, trying to create, or help to create that breakaway.
Trying to. At the back, number 95, that's Sebastian Langeveld. He's second last overall.
And that was Michael Hepburn, who was just in front of him.
Also going back, Gonçalves. This is Pascalon. In fact, this is Van Melsen from Wanty-Groupe-Goubert. Now, it went down to 17 seconds. It's been inconsistent with the chase, but out in front, they've been rock solid, and they're all fully committed as if it's a 4-man team time trial. It's back out to 21.
A bit like we spoke about with how Quintana rode the Gillibier yesterday, steady state effort from bottom to top, as opposed to attacks coming thick and fast, really intense into the red zone, but then you need to back off. So they're taking 1 step forward, 2 steps back in the chase group behind our leading 4.
And behind that move from Warren Barguil, I did note the black and yellow colours of Jumbo-Visma. They've got their strategy to try and put a rider out in front. 1 kilometre to the top of this Category 3 climb.
Theo Bilbao swings across. He looks over the shoulder. A lot of checking behind from these 4. Vincenzo Nibali staying cool as ever. Just keep tapping out the rhythm.
Still more than 3,000 metres worth of climbing to go.
And he knows if he just keeps riding right at his limit, the gap has got to open back up. Surely the favourites, who are the only one who really could close it, are not just going to ride across this gap.
Dylan Groenewegen in the yellow colours at the back. Andre Greipel in the white colours. The sprinters aiming to survive. Even Sergio Henao is back here, number 93. That is Simon Clark.
Mike Turnison up the front of this little part of the group, just behind a split. In the group up in front of that, Greg Van Avermaet is there, Niels Pollitt. Here's Julien Alaphilippe with Geraint Thomas right on his wheel, and next to him is Thibaut Pinot, the favourites, all stuck together at the moment.
And importantly, just in front of the yellow jersey, he had Enric Mas looking really comfortable, sitting up, adjusting his jersey. One more teammate there for De Koning Quickstep. Couldn't see who it was, but I would assume that it was Dries Devenants. Guess who again?
Oh, yeah, you could say it without looking at the screen. It said there's a Movistar rider, Soler, with Wellens. Postelberger or Mühlberger?
No, that's Patrick Conrad, the
Conrad.
Austrian chap.
Oh, there's three of them, and I reckon they're triplets.
This is Rudy.
Forget the Yates twins.
They're hard to pick. Rudy Millar going backwards there for Group Armour FDJ. Just hearing on race radio, Caleb Ewan being dropped. In fact, here he is. Well, Caleb Ewan is in a really good position in the context of this stage, Robbie.
This is very good. I mean, what you've really got to do is just ride at your limit and hope you end up in a decent group. He's got teammates with him, and they just have to ride to their own limit for what they can manage for the next 100 kilometres in the mountains.
And they're almost at the top of the climb. Dan Martin leading through. They're not worried about the 2 points for the top of this climb. They're just trying to maintain their advantage. It's Bilbao in second position. Nibali in third spot. Herrada just holding on at the back. Martin leads them over the top. If you were in Caleb Ewan's position at the moment, would you be happy with that?
Well,
in the context.
You'd be happy that you've only just been dropped now.
Yes,
rather
that's my
than
point.
Dropped at the kilometre 0.3, where some riders were already in trouble. And having only just been dropped, it's feasible he could descend his way back onto a much larger group that may be able to drag themselves back up to the peloton, but still plenty of racing to come to get themselves into the break of the day. And the problem is, it's a short descent, a little bit of valley road which drags up. Basically, you're on the lower slopes of the next climb, the Category 2, the Montée de Ossoir. A 6.5 kilometre climb at 6%.
These are some of the riders that have been dropped from the yellow jersey group. One of them is number 22, Kasper Asgreen, and he is all in to make sure he returns to support the yellow jersey. What about the rider in last position?
Yeah, Jasper de Boest. He was in the break yesterday. He's the lead-out man for Caleb Ewan. He's been riding a really good tour, supporting Caleb. And at the back end of the tour, he's riding as if he's really fresh.
He was in the break yesterday and got to witness the yellow jersey battle on the Col de Galibier.
Well, he's much more a sprinter than he is anything else, and he's got himself in the break yesterday, still in the group now, so really well done to de Boest. We'll see groups flying down on the left of screen, scrambling to rejoin.
And as you've told us throughout this year's tour, the race organisers, they've formed the barrage. They're not letting those team cars go past, which, if there's a mechanical problem at the front, can cause an even bigger problem, as Jesus Herrada is having trouble keeping up with the descending skills of his three breakaway companions.
Yep, the other three fairly evenly matched, and Herrada struggling. Oh, he didn't quite time the bunny hop onto the bridge very well either.
It's a phenomenal atmosphere on the side of the road at the Tour de France, particularly in the high mountains, with the long wait for the peloton to arrive. And I saw some images yesterday of a Dutch group leading a big sing-along at the top of the Col de Galibier, where there was the sign for Free Luke Rowe. This race continues to splint. The yellow jersey here, Julien Alaphilippe, sits just behind the Mitchelton Scott rider, Adam Yates. This is Michael Woods in the pink colours. Patrick Conrad comes through, checking the whereabouts perhaps of Emmanuel Bookman from Bora Hansgrohe. Movistar there also with Marc Soler. This race is being torn to shreds by the tempo at the front. That leading four, they still hold on to a significant advantage in the context of this stage, just 44 seconds ahead of the yellow jersey group, but there is a split, and the 19 riders that find themselves at 25 seconds behind includes Rigoberto Urán. Rigoberto Urán having started the stage in 9th position overall at 5 minutes and 33 seconds down. This is Marc Soler now coming through to the front, followed by Alexei Lutsenko. Next in line is Mollema, then it's Caruso, who's in the break yesterday. This is Peter Sagan. He's back with the yellow jersey group. Bookman is there. There's the yellow jersey, followed by Thibaut Pinot. But Julian Alaphilippe, Robbie, he's limited for teammates. Number 22 comes by. That's Casper Asgreen. He's going to be important for the next 50 kilometres.
It'll be incredibly important, and it'll start to be a little bit of panic stations. But what Alaphilippe has done so well so far in this tour is not panicked. You've got Uran up the front. You've got riders who can really become a danger by getting in a breakaway. But Alaphilippe, they do what they can, but they don't panic, and they wait for the others to panic first.
Look at all the yellow helmets in this group. The yellow helmets of the Movistar team. There's 3 of them, and it includes
Landa?
Alejandro Valverde. Valverde is in that group. He sits in 10th place overall at 5 minutes and 58 seconds down. That is a dangerous group.
Because I was trying to spot Landa in the group of the yellow jersey. I wasn't able to do that yet. And with all those light blue jerseys, yellow helmets buzzing up the road, it'd be easy to lose track of where Landa is.
What's happening with Thibaut Pinot?
This is the problem.
This is for the Frenchman. 5th overall, Thibaut Pinot at 1 minute and 50 seconds down. He's looking a little rattled.
He's at the race doctor.
Race doctor, not mechanical.
No, he's had something happen to his leg.
Looks like he might have been bitten.
Yeah, I wonder if he's had a sting of some sort. Pointing to it, gesturing to his leg. Or... it looked like he had some sort of sports taping on his leg that was being removed. It's hard to say. But 2 of the doctors working at once.
And there's more tape that's been ripped off the leg of Thibaut Pinot. And now they're putting fresh tape on for the Frenchman.
But that's a bandage, not a tape. So I wonder if he's been hit in the leg by something and he's got some sort of cut. So hard to tell.
Oh, it was a violent reaction from Thibaut Pinot. A real shock to the system, whatever it was.
But you could see it on his face and really looked quite panicked.
That's why I thought he might have been stung by something as it happened. He's now falling a long way back with the convoy of cars still stuck behind where he is, and he's now looking for the team car, and he'll need some team help. It doesn't look good at all for Thibaut Pinot.
This looks terrible for Pinot.
This might be the end of his hopes to win the Tour. He's still looking over for his team car for supports, and he looks incredibly distressed. I'm sure he doesn't want the TV camera with him, but we want to know what is happening with Thibaut Pinot. He probably wants to know what's happening with Thibaut Pinot. What exactly is the damage for the Frenchman? He's desperately close to coming to a grinding halt.
I think this is going to be the end of Pinot's tour.
There are no teammates coming back here for him. This is a lonely moment for Thibaut Pinot in a very public atmosphere. Pat on the back coming from Anthony Roux. Elia Viviani is in this group, the Italian sprinter. Rudy Mollard tapping him on the back, and they're not waiting. This is tour over for Thibaut Pinot.
This is game over. We do not know what has happened with his leg, but it was very sudden. It's a matter of time until he pulls over and steps off.
It's always extremes with Thibaut Pinot. You can see the look of concern from Alexis Goujar as he rode past.
Everybody is just shocked.
Us included. The distress is etched across his face.
the mechanic with the scissors, it's hard to tell if it's a muscular problem, something suddenly gone, or he's been hit by something.
He stopped
takes
it now.
the scissors himself. He's going to cut the bandage off again.
Pandemonium at the Tour de France. The cameraman doing his best to try and stick with Thibaut Pinot, but he's already out to more than 2 minutes behind, I'm sure. He's been at a standstill for a while.
One of the strangest things we've seen.
It is a sporting disaster for Thibaut Pinot. He's looked so good throughout this race.
There's no visible damage on his leg, so he's having some sort of muscular problem.
Well, whatever it is, we're just guessing, but I'm anticipating that is it for Thibaut Pinot.
And the look on the face, it just speaks volumes, doesn't it? What a shame for Thibaut Pinot. When it was all looking so good, when he was being talked up as the big favourite to take over from Julien Alaphilippe after his performance on the Tourmalet, it looks like being a sad end for the Frenchman.
And our 4 leaders, that's all happening behind them. They're about to be caught by a big group that includes multiple riders from the Movistar team, and chiefly amongst them is Alejandro Valverde. There he is. You can see the rainbow jersey, the world champion with the yellow helmet on.
Pinot, he continues to ride on, but visibly distressed and making no inroads on the groups in front of him. In fact, he's being caught by riders who've been dropped, like Alexander Kristoff, who was behind him.
He's been caught by a sprinter, and Thibaut Pinot is one of the world's best climbers.
He's bravely trying to continue, but at this pace, yeah, we've said he's 2 minutes 42 behind the front of the race. He's already lost 2 minutes just about to the yellow jersey. Such a strange situation.
Well, we will follow any news that we can get from his team, Groupama FDJ, but they won't be able to work it out just as yet, so I'm sure that they won't be making a statement of ambiguity. They'll wait until they get confirmation as to what has happened with Thibaut Pinot, but that is so sad to see. This is Woods at the front, followed then by Amador. Amador and Soler are in that group, but at the back the group is splintering. Number 67 is being dropped, so too Matthews in the red colours. This group is really motoring. Bauke Mollema, this is Yates, this is Simon Yates. And Guillaume Martin is here from Montegroup Gilbert. Fabio Aru, Rigoberto Uran is number 91.
Dylan van Baal, Reichenbach, number 57 from FDJ, but his leader is out the back and looks like he is on the verge of abandoning this Tour de France. It's Movistar who are driving the pace. Andre Amador on the front. They have caught Nibali and Bilbao.
And it's now Castelviejo forced to do the chasing, followed then by Dries Devenens. It's Geraint Thomas who's the next in line, followed by Kruijswijk. Then it's the brave Bennetts.
And behind that, Emmanuel Buchmann with his teammates from Bora Hansgrohe. So like we said before, Julien Alaphilippe, he's the last one to panic out of all of the favourites. When it's all happening in front, he looks like he's about to be ridden out of it. The others are not willing to gamble their own positions to isolate Julien Alaphilippe.
We saw plenty of evidence yesterday of the advantage of being a good descender, and Julien Alaphilippe, the current race leader, is one of the very best. At the top of the climb yesterday, he was just under 30 seconds behind the other group of the favourites in the race for the yellow, like the defending champion Geraint Thomas. And not only did he catch them pretty early, he went past them and he put them under pressure.
He did, and that is one of his big weapons, Julien Alaphilippe. But we heard Andy Schleck saying, I used to be a really good descender. I used to take a lot of risks and never had a problem. Until then, I'd never had a bad crash on a descent. It takes one bad crash on a descent to really make you risk averse.
Any crashes that scared you?
I wasn't scared for long because they happened so quickly, but a couple of times within the last kilometre or just coming into right as the sprint was starting, 300, 250 to go, been involved in crashes where they go down all around you, all in front of you, and you know you're going down. A split second later, you are down, you're sliding on the road, you're rolling along, skin's coming off, so you don't have long to be scared. because then you're dealing with what's just happened to me, what hurts, what's broken.
But there is that moment where time seems to stop. When you know you're going down, it's beyond the point of being able to save it.
You have that tiny bit of slow motion, and then it speeds up times 10. Once you hit the ground, it speeds up a lot.
On a positive note, which was your favourite descent in the Tour de France?
I loved them all, to be honest. Whenever I got to the top of a mountain in a mountain stage, I loved every descent. I prefer just the long flowing ones without hairpin corners. You just didn't need to brake, and you could actually relax and recover a little bit.
Lise of Saint-Etienne. The peloton charges on through. Inside the last 90 kilometres already. This has been a rapid start to the stage. Average speed so far, 38 kilometres per hour after an hour and 15 minutes of racing. Significant breakaway of 29 riders. If you have just joined us, unfortunately, having started the day in 5th place overall, Thibaut Pinot has abandoned the race. The chase is on by Ineos and the Koenig Quick-Step. The two riders who are doing the chasing, Jonathan Castroviejo for Ineos, the team of Geraint Thomas and Egan Bernal. And Casper Asgreen clearly descends well. He has exited those couple of corners with a gap to the rest of the group.
Yeah, clearly descends faster than Jonathan Castroviejo. Here's the yellow jersey, Julien Alaphilippe, shadowed then by the Movistar riders, Quintana, then Landa behind him.
And just spotted for the first time the bandages on the right leg of George Bennett, the Kiwi who crashed twice yesterday. We knew about the first one, but when we started to hear reports of the second one, we were really concerned about him because we hadn't seen him, which is always bad news. Fortunately, he did finish the stage in 27th position and says he is okay.
That's amazing in itself, to finish that stage in 27th when you've crashed twice, but the second one you're laying by the roadside on the final descent, just to peel yourself up off the road and get back on again. But it shows how quick and how far forward in the race he was on the climb of the Galibier.
This is Michael Woods in the pink colours. Flick of the elbow from Warren Barguil, who also flicked his elbow, but there was nobody else behind him to do the pacemaking at the front. Woods wants to keep driving this group for his teammate, number 91, Rigoberto Urán.
He's doing exactly the right thing, trying to push the pace on, but there was just someone back there who swung across, didn't follow the wheel, and the gap opened up. Emmanuel Buchmann, number 12 from Bora Hansgrohe.
He's now into the top 5 with the abandonment of Thibaut Pinot. Not how we would have liked to have gotten there, but he moves himself into the top 5, and he's a rider who came into the race aiming for top 10.
I'm sure that news has come through as a shock to the riders in the peloton. They would have heard over race radio from their team directors in the cars behind them that Thibaut Pinot has abandoned the race. And no one would find it a pleasant surprise. None of them would be saying, oh, great, I've moved up one. Not a single one. Everyone's been in that situation where you've been riding a race, doing well, and then something goes wrong. You don't wish it on anybody. And we wish Thibaut Pinot a quick and full recovery for whatever it is. Something that was obviously there after yesterday because he had his legs strapped. We saw them remove strapping, put a bandage on. They were trying everything. This is Rigoberto Urán. Quick look across at the camera. Have you got my good side?
Incidentally, although they're in clear skies at the moment with 76 kilometres remaining, at the finish line, there are spectators out the front of the commentary position, ducking for cover. They're grabbing ponchos and they're searching for umbrellas.
Yep. Just the first drops coming down. The clouds have gathered above Tignes here at the finish, and the forecast was for possible thunderstorms from 3 p.m. It's now nearly 3:15 local time, and that chance, 30 to 40% chance all through the evening until the end of the race. So if the riders are lucky, they'll avoid the storms in whichever valley they find themselves in at the time. This is Michael Matthews just drifting backwards. This back to our main peloton with the yellow jersey, also the green jersey.
He was in that breakaway group, but as the tempo was a bit hot on one of the climbs, he is now conceded and he's gone back to the yellow jersey group.
Gap drifting up now too, over the minute. So the chase really in earnest at first, trying to just pull it back. Now they've realised we can't just ride across to it. They've settled into what will be the tempo for the day. There have to be some big accelerations from the domestics who are left. like Walt Pools, if he can find the form of recent years. And that's a big question mark at Team Ineos.
That is the question mark. They do have the card of Dylan van Baarle in that breakaway group. They could make the call, OK, Dylan, we need you back here. Wait.
Oh, it was like yesterday. He'll be sitting there not contributing very much at all and waiting for the signal from the team. We saw yesterday at the point where he went out the back of that front group, it seemed to be taking too long for the liking of Jonathan Casaviejo, who was gesticulating as we get the confirmation of race radio. Michael Matthews distanced from that breakaway group. Yeah, Casaviejo, he would have liked Dylan van Baarle to get back there a little bit sooner to take over the pacemaking duties. He did that very well on the slopes of the Galibier before the attack came from Egan Bernal. Geraint Thomas said, I asked him to.
He wanted more pace. He wanted the tempo to be hotter on that climb. This is Woods now. He's been in that breakaway and he looks like he is starting to feel the ill effects of multiple days in the breakaway. This group splitting up under the pressure that has been applied at the front. 63, this is Andre Amador. Second day in the breakaway for him. That is Ali Gisbert in the white colours of Ikea Samsung. They don't look very well organised at the moment, this leading group.
No, here number 122 is Fabio Aru. He's on the wheel of Simon Yates, a dual stage winner. Volker Mollema is also here, 136 for Trek Segafredo, the teammate of Richie Porte. This is Laurence de Plus from Jumbo-Visma. Guillaume Martin made his way into the break again. Bilbao, Galopin, Woods. No, not Woods. It's further back. Uran, excuse me.
There's Van Baarle. Do they make the call to have him head back to the head of the peloton and assist with the chase?
Giulio Ciccone is also in this group, another teammate of Richie Porte, a young Italian.
One of the stars of his generation. He's still in the professional peloton, but unfortunately not in this year's tour for him is Mark Cavendish. In addition to winning 30 stages throughout his career at the Tour de France, he's also had a stint in the famous Maillot Jaune. Let's take a look at Mark Cavendish and his time in the yellow jersey.
The yellow jersey is
on Thibaut Pinot, team statement.
From Groupama FDJ, Thibaut suffers from a muscular lesion on his left thigh. Yesterday he finished stage 18 with a sharp pain and had troubles walking in the evening. His condition didn't improve today. He just withdrew from the Tour de France. That is so sad for Thibaut Pinot.
Well, a muscular lesion, I assume they mean a muscle tear, because that is the sort of pain that would bring on, is what you could read from Thibaut Pinot's face.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This is Volker Mollema. So disappointment of the day. Do you agree with my assessment, Walt Poles? Because he's not at the level he's normally been at to support the team. Plus he had a crash just to make life a little bit more difficult. Or have you got somebody else?
No, I guess, but not hugely disappointing, because it still went in the right direction
for the team.
For the team. And you just never know with them when they say, no, I've got a situation under control. But I would have expected them to want to use Walt Pools yesterday. Hopefully for them, he's made a recovery for today. The Glacier de Vieux.
The old glacier sitting at over 3,000 metres above sea level. This is Marc Soler. He has been distanced from that leading group as Jonathan Casaviejo still chasing with some urgency for Ineos. Unsung hero yesterday.
In the meantime, the gap out to 126, so they really are pushing it at the front.
Unsung hero, Alexei Lutsenko.
Absolutely. He was on the attack from kilometre 0, and he just kept on going until he was finally in the group. It was a fantastic ride to end up third. Bardet on the Galibier kept flicking the elbow and yelling at Lutsenko to do a turn. Lutsenko was absolutely at his limit. He could not do any more, and then Bardet rode away from him. But to hang in there on that stage and finish third was phenomenal. We thought the day before was a better chance to actually win the stage with the terrain, but he is strong.
He was brilliant yesterday, third on the stage. He's in the breakaway today. Bike IQ move of the day. I found this one hard to determine, and I'll give you my rationale before you give me your assessment. I went with Romain Bardet for these reasons. He's had a really tough tour. nowhere near his expectations or his normal standards. He got himself in the breakaway, taking points in the King of the Mountains classification. He now leads that, and he might have been able to set up a position for him to reach the podium in Paris in the polka dot jersey. I thought that showed great character and smarts. How can I get a big result out of this race?
So for mine, I think it's a good choice, but more than being clever, I admire his mental fortitude. To be able to switch things around after being so disappointed when his overall hopes fell apart, and then to put the gun on the other shoulder, so to speak, and aim at something else. Got himself in the break to be able to come back from that disappointment, not drop his bundle, and refocus and get himself in the break. Yeah, well done. So, brain power.
A bravery award. Have you got an alternative bike IQ move from yesterday that really stood out for you?
It wasn't the team assistant of De Koning Quickstep with the push of Julien Alaphilippe. Wasn't that.
Got your attention, though, didn't it?
Egan Bernal.
Traded in the country and the nationality of the team. It goes to where the riders hail from as well.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, plenty of coverage in Australia as being an Australian registered and sponsored team. Still just down the valley at the moment. So the profile telling us a little bit of a fib. They come down towards the sprint. It's a short downhill section, and after the sprint, it'll start to drag back up again.
As Barguil at the front, the French national champion. Vincenzo Nibali has been doing a lot of work in this group. He wants to win a stage desperately.
And Barguil wants to lead through the sprint. Long turn on the front from Barguil.
Perhaps there's the contemplation of the time bonus as well, as Tony Galopin wants the points. So too does Lutsenko. And it is Lutsenko, the third place finisher from the stage yesterday, who collects them.
Who knows why? Just because it's there.
Yeah. At number 77, that's Magnus Cort Nielsen at the back of the group. Alejandro Valverde didn't waste any energy through that intermediate sprint. He just stayed towards the back. Galopin pressing on along with Lutsenko. Fabio Aru has now been caught by the main peloton, being led still by Jonathan Castroviejo and Casper Asgreen. And coming towards the front, Bora Hansgrohe now doing the chasing. That is Daniel Oss that sits in third spot, because the position in fifth overall of Buchmann is under threat by Uran and Valverde.
And this has always been the saviour for Julien Alaphilippe. Riders further back on GC, they all start to protect their own positions. The team of Buchmann and himself, well, he came into the Tour saying, I'd love to finish in the top 10. At the moment, he's occupying fifth overall. He was sixth coming into today. Thibaut Pinot abandons the Tour. He's got a top 5 for the taking at the moment if he can continue the performances he's shown in the mountain so far, Buchmann. But all those teams will just start to defend their patch.
We haven't seen any signs of weakness from Emmanuel Buchmann.
He's been extremely good. Steady state riding. But he hasn't chosen just to sit in the wheels either. On the Tourmalet, there was a moment where he came to the front where it was really crowded, very narrow passage. He went to the front, and it wasn't to sit up to try and get them to go at his own pace, slow things up and recover. He really went through hard and put riders under pressure.
Yeah, indeed. Now we see the peloton coming through Basson, where the sprint was held. This is one of the regions in the Alpine parts of France. It's not really focused on the Alpine skiing. It's more looking for cross-country skiing. They've got 150 kilometres worth of tracks that sits on this plateau at around about 1,800 metres.
Well, that would give them good coverage all winter long. And there is the shooting range. So you see in the biathlon, in cross-country skiing,
is the biathlon stadium here that hosts a few international events.
I always admire that, but they ski in heart rate around 200 and then hold their breath between shots, laying or standing.
Each of those activities independently is really, really hard. Putting them together is super tough. Nibali still driving through in the red colours from Bahrain Merida. Valverde also contributing to the pacemaking. He knows if he's a passenger in this group, others won't work. Van Baal, though, rolling through to the front for Ineos, will try to slow things down.
Rigoberto Urán at the back, number 91. Just making sure he's got enough fuel on board.
Mitchelton Scott, they're represented in the breakaway by Simon Yates. Back in the group with the yellow jersey is the young Australian Jack Haig, making his first appearance at the Tour de France. And we caught up with Jack before the start of today's stage. Let's now have a listen to what he had to say.
We will again have Robbie's Gran Fondo, and it's a really fantastic day out in the Gold Coast hinterland. 3 different courses, 60, 100 or 130 kilometres. You choose your level of pain with really nice climbs, 5 to 6% gradient. And that's the type of event that gets people introduced to cycling, think, hey, I really like this, get kids involved too. We've got lots of kids that take part as well, doing the shorter rides. And we also have a little kids ride that we support a local special school with facilities, with hand cycles that are being bought through one of our charity partner called Condev Cares. They're doing some fantastic work down there, and they're about to build them a track for riding all their different types of bikes on, the kids that attend the special school down there. So we're supporting that through Robbie's Gran Fondo this year. So if you're in Australia, even New Zealand, anywhere through Asia, you'd like to make a trip down to the Gold Coast, love to have you at the event. Check out robbiesgranfondo.com.
And check out the Movistar leading the team's classification. They are at the top of the table, 20 minutes and 38 seconds ahead of Trek Segafredo, and they're well positioned again with riders in this breakaway, including number 63, Andre Amador, at the back of the group. More importantly, though, number 62, the world champion, Alejandro Valverde. Jesus Herrada, the birthday boy, turning 29 today. He is sitting at the back of this group. He was in the original breakaway group of 4. They're approaching this climb, the highest climb of this year's tour. The Col d'Iseran takes them to 2,770 metres above sea level.
Well, we see the profile there. You'll be familiar with the colours now. Green, easy. Blue stepping up a little bit, up towards 6%, and then into the red, 6 to 9%. And that's what it is for so much of the Iseran. As much as the gradient, or even more, in my opinion, is just the altitude. But as they get to the top, you see that section, 9.3%. This is one of the longest graphics we've seen so far on this tour. It's only a 13-kilometre climb.
But
I think we've got to take the time to illustrate how high we are in the Alps.
Did you just hear yourself?
Only a 13-kilometre climb.
Yeah.
In the past and in this tour, we've done climbs of 20, 24 kilometres long.
And tomorrow to Val Thorens.
It's 33 kilometres long to Val Thorens. So this one's only 13, but the altitude, 2770.
That's the key sticking point today.
That's like having someone's hands around your neck, wringing it.
And Alejandro Valverde, historically the 39-year-old, he has struggled at high altitude, number 62 in this group. And while you're organising your Gran Fondo, Robbie, I've got to work out a way to try and get a little bit fitter to do L'Etape Australia.
Well, you're going to come and do my event first. You'll be back from the Vuelta. It's a week before the Worlds. So you're coming up to the Gold Coast. That's it. No more discussion.
Done.
And you're doing the longest ride as well. You're doing the 130, not any of the others.
Why are you laughing?
Well, I just thought you might say, OK, I'll do the 60 with one climb.
Yeah. The last time
You've at least got to do the 100 with the 2 major climbs.
The last time I did a ride with Robbie up near his place in the hinterland where his event is, I kept hearing this phrase, don't worry, Kino, it's just a little bit further. Don't worry, Kino, it's just around the next corner.
Yeah, but I took you on a special climb for that one. Climbs of the Fondo a bit shorter, 8 kilometres long and 9 kilometres long, 5 to 6%. I took you on the one that was 16 kilometres long with pinches up to 22%.
Yeah, and you told me it was 6Ks long and it was just gradual.
You're welcome.
AG2R Le Mondial are now chasing This is Matthias Frank, who's at the front. Roman Bardet is in no position for the general classification. He is chasing that breakaway group because he wants points in the King of the Mountains classification. And if he can't win them, he wants to prevent Damiano Caruso from winning them. So he's put teammates on the front to do the chasing to stop Caruso closing in on the polka dots. He's waited. Van Baarle has been in the breakaway for Ineos. He has now waited.
Well, that is good news for AG2R.
This is Gilbert, who was in the break and driving it for Warren Barguil. He comes to a grinding halt.
Job done. This is Magnus Cort, still pushing on. He's done a great job to get into this breakaway. Guy who started his pro career more renowned as a sprinter. As we see the Gruppetto come through the intermediate sprint, driven by Soudal Lotto. Look out for Caleb Ewan in here then.
A spot.
Andre Greipel is there. Ewan was there. Dylan Groenewegen here at the back of the group in the yellow and black with the blue shoes.
And it's worth noting, Robbie, they're working turns. They're not just cruising.
And that's what the Gruppetto always has to do. Wherever it's flat, slightly downhill, cooperate. Big teams time trial, really drive it. But so many riders from Soudal Lotto, there'd be riders in there thinking, great, free ride, at least on the flat. And when it comes to the mountains, they settle into a tempo that their sprinter can handle. The thing to do in the Gruppetto, help me with the word.
Collaborate.
It evades me for the moment.
At the moment, they're 10 minutes. They're 10 minutes and 22 seconds behind the front of the race.
The unwritten rule is once you're in the Gruppetto, you ride at a tempo that the weakest guy can just handle.
So it's socialism.
You're sticking together because the next day you might be the weakest guy.
No, well, it's not really. Let's keep it in context. He's 22. He's gone to his limits. He's just been distanced by that group. Matthias Frank also been distanced, having done the chasing to try and close it down to the leaders. Next in line, this is Michael Charel. He is the roommate for Roman Bardet. This is Gisbert, who's just riding his own race from this point. He's been working in the breakaway group to try and set up a stage victory for Warren Barguil. That team, Akaya Samsic, looking for their first victory in the Tour de France. This is Izaguirre. He was in the original breakaway group as well. Marc Soler, now of Movistar, being dropped as Dylan Van Baarle sets the tempo out in front. 1:21, they're closing in on the leaders. It is a neck-and-neck battle between Marc Soler and Casper Asgreen for the domestic of this tour up until this point. David Gaudu, number 53, still surviving in this group. King of the Mountains jersey being worn by Roman Bardet. Just in front of him is George Bennett. 2 crashes yesterday and still in that very select group. That's important for Steven Kruijswijk. They also have Laurens de Plus in the leading group, so he's on hand just in case.
Just look at that entire picture. If that doesn't make you feel just slightly insignificant, we look at these great riders and then zoom out. Can't even spot them in the enormity of the Alps.
Van Baarle, a rider recruited to the team for the Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix. Flatland specialist, the cobblestones. For the last 2 days, he's gone into the early breakaway, then dropped back and supported the best climbers in the world.
We've seen it over the years with Team Sky, now Team Ineos, as our last 2 riders on the road. These were the first men dropped today.
That's
they are going to be in trouble. De Buschere,
Marco
I think it's Marco Haller at the same time. That's a voiture ballet, the broom wagon.
And we saw the Gruppetto go through 10 minutes and 20 seconds, and that feels like it was at least 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, they're at least 10 minutes behind the Gruppetto. That is trouble for those 2.
They're at 19:30, so they are in elimination zone. They're at real risk of not being able to start tomorrow. What courage Bardet showed yesterday to fight and bounce back after a disappointing start to the tour. He's still in the hunt to get himself a spot on the podium in Paris. That's for the King of the Mountains jersey. The team cars from the breakaway now, they've been dragged off to the side of the road. Richie Port is still there. He collects from one of his Sponiers, and he's still got teammates in that leading group. At least he's got one. He has. It's Giulio Ciccone, who's still in the leading group. And here he is on the fronts. The young Italian who wore the yellow jersey for 2 days. So far, Ciccone is the only guy to have taken a yellow jersey away from Julian Alaphilippe. Alaphilippe got it back, however, and is now wearing the yellow jersey for the 14th time in this year's tour. Simon Yates at the back, number 108. Number 57 in the red colours, the Swiss national champion. That's Sebastian Reichenbach. With his teammate, unfortunately, Thibaut Pinot out, he gets his chance to aim for a stage win.
There's our 3D graphic, the front of the race. Now just some 350 metres behind is the group with Thomas Alaphilippe. A couple of riders just in between on that graphic dropped out of that breakaway group.
And the top of this climb is at 37.5 kilometres to go.
Then long, fast downhill brings them into Val d'Isère, a little bit flatter. Then they race around the lake down below Tignes, through the tunnels. That's also a moment, have your wits about you, really be paying attention. The tunnels are mostly unlit.
How long?
A few hundred metres each, one of them around a kilometre. So really dark, it's sunglasses down onto the tip of the nose and look over the top so you can see enough.
A bit like Dad reading the newspaper in the morning.
There's quite a few potholes and road repairs in the tunnel, so it's bumpy in some sections. And it's also wet from yesterday's downpour. The water just leaks through the rock, leaches on through, and it's wet in the tunnels. There's no turns within them, though, so that shouldn't cause too many problems.
That is good.
When they come through those tunnels, out the other end, they can see across till 5 kilometres to go, but they've got to ride past. Keep going down the valley, do a U-turn, and then they make the final climb up to Tignes, 7.4 kilometres at 7%. So they get an extra 2.5 kilometres rather than turn across the top of the dam here below Tignes.
The climb tops out 2 kilometres from the finish line, then it's a flat run through to the finish effectively. Van Baal still at the front. The riders who have been caught from the breakaway, that's Patrick Conrad from Bora Hansgrohe. He's taken the opportunity to collect some food for Mühlberger and, more significantly, Buchmann. Bilbao also having been caught from the breakaway.
Just on that final 2 kilometres through to the finish after the official top of the climb here in Tignes, it's not flat through to the finish. It just keeps on dragging up all the way here to the finish line. I rode it earlier today. Okay, I'm not in Tour de France condition. I was never a good climber in the scheme of the Tour de France, but I was still huffing and puffing coming on top. It is a serious drag. Some little kicks as well on the way up. So it's not flat.
We'll call it less steep.
Less steep. Just an unofficial part of the climb.
The back of the breakaway group, 108. Simon Yates has not been contributing. He's been saving. This is Tony Galopin. He's been dropped from the breakaway, caught by the yellow jersey group, and distanced once again. And it's Van Baal who is still the rider driving the tempo.
Front group, 8 kilometres from the top of the Isère. A lot of downhill. We know Julian Alaphilippe loves it, and he's the best at it. They've got to go very soon. They can't let Van Baal go for as long as he did yesterday on the Galibier before they light things up.
This is Bilbao, who's now been dropped from the yellow jersey group. Is it a chase of the leaders, or is it an effort to put the yellow jersey under pressure? It can be both.
From one will come the other. They've got to ride their own race here. They've got to get rid of Julian Alaphilippe today. If they don't do it today, because of course you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You might not get the opportunities. The climb up to Val d'Isère is very long, but way less steep. It's only around 5.5% average.
And if it happens to be a headwind on that climb tomorrow, that's a bigger advantage for the yellow jersey to sit the wheels.
You don't wait till the last chance. They've got to do it today. And there goes Van Baal. So now Walt Pouls is taking over. This is the real start of the setup for Ineos to put the yellow jersey under pressure.
For the second day running, a big performance done by Van Baal. That's Patrick Conrad that just goes through the left-hand side of the screen. We return to the rear end of the leading group. Dan Martin is now being caught. He won't last too long. It's Walt Poles who is on the front. This is Michael Woods, and that's from the leading group because he's been doing so much of the pacemaking for his teammate, Rigoberto Urán.
And this is where Urán needs to push on with it if he wants to improve his place on GC. He can't worry about thinking about the stage win. He's just got to go if he wants to move up on GC.
Ciccone being dropped 133. Lutsenko, third from yesterday, 76, is also being dropped. And Reichenbach, the Swiss national champion, the red colours. Nibali driving, working full gas at the front. Also in the back of his mind, not just the stage, the King of the Mountains jersey for Caruso, his teammate who sits just behind him.
Well, this is perfect for Rigoberto Urán, but the gap now just 47 seconds back to the yellow jersey group.
Yates holding on at the back. And Walt Poles is setting the tempo.
And altitude starting to have an effect. They are above 2,200 metres above sea level now. Ciccone, he is coming back towards the group. Is there anything he can do for Richie Porte? I don't think so.
All that he can do is offer him some food or a fresh water bottle. That is it. Because at this point for Richie, for everybody in that group that's behind the Ineos train, it is hold on for dear life.
Nibali, he continues to drive this front group, but the gap coming down 32 seconds. Nibali leading his teammate Caruso. Valverde, he is hanging tight.
Look at how long number 77, Magnus Cort Nielsen, has lasted. He has won bunch sprint finishes at the Volta a España. He has turned himself into a guy that's got plenty of weapons. He can seriously climb.
And refusing to be dropped just yet as well. In front of him, Simon Yates, 2-stage wins already. Just tracking the rest. Should he go or should he wait, Yates? I think while Nibali is riding like this, he's got to wait.
Lutsenko is fighting his way back, and the move from Geraint Thomas, and Egan Bernal swings off and says, he's my teammate, you chase.
Taking turns. Yesterday it was Bernal who went on the offensive. Thomas tried to go after, he was tracked by the rest. Now the others have to try and cross the gap to Thomas. It's Mühlberger
for Bookman. But Ineos, when they do this, they don't panic. They gradually reel them back in. Porte has been dropped, so too Bardet. Thomas is desperately trying to push on.
Kruijswijk out of the saddle. Very small gap to land. Julian Alaphilippe, look over the shoulder. He sees Bernal in the wheel. Richie Porte has got himself back on to the tail end of this group.
This is out in front at just 29 seconds. The French national champion, Warren Barguil. Finally, Rigoberto Urán comes to the front. He's been waiting patiently. Steven Kruijswijk. Well, we head to Ting, and when he had his altitude camp, this is where it was based. Geraint Thomas is the next to go.
Big gear for the Dutchman out of the saddle, that familiar rocking style of Steven Kruijswijk. This is his first major attack of this Tour de France. He's been happy to follow, hang in there, and wait for today in the high mountains.
Richie Porte 131. He fights and he tries to survive. The yellow jersey is sticking to the rear wheel of Mikel Landa.
Egan Bernal, he goes from behind them. He rides across the gap and he looks comfortable. Landa out of the saddle. Alaphilippe, he can't follow that. The yellow jersey losing touch.
He's totally isolated now. He looks across his shoulder. There are no teammates for the Maillot Jaune. He's wrestling with the bike. He's wrestling with the mountain. And his rivals are sensing blood in the water. Kruijswijk, followed by Thomas. Mühlberger and Bookman still coming across, but Alaphilippe is not done with yet.
And they won't be done with him until the finish line. He has so much fight. He gets a very long descent to try and work his way back on, but of course then has the final climb up here to Tignes. They've got him on the ropes.
And Kruijswijk has ridden across to the leading group. He's not too worried about Thomas at the moment. Porte goes past Alaphilippe, but Alaphilippe still has enough in the tank to get on Richie's wheel. Guillaume Martin is number 191.
Porte, a flick of the elbow, back to the yellow jersey. Not much more he can do. Everybody now approaching their absolute limit. Kruijswijk looks back. What's the damage I've done? I'll check for you, says G.
And Bernal is there, Mühlberger and Bookman. Bookman is emerging as a real threat. He is at just 2:14 behind the yellow jersey.
Mulberger, he's dropped now. Fantastic work. And Bernal now goes. Bernal, he let Thomas attack. He dropped back behind all the others, had a look, rounded them up one by one. Now he goes to the front. Kruiswijk, the grimace. They're all still in the wheel, but Bernal is only just getting started.
And he's got 5 more kilometres worth of opportunity. 30 seconds is the gap to the front of the race for the yellow jersey. As Bernal has cracked them, he has opened up the gap. Egan Bernal, the longer this climb is, the better it is for the Colombian. We could be seeing history made for Colombian cycling.
As the others start to struggle, not enough oxygen for them. Egan Bernal, he is coming into his element. He said it a week ago. We're approaching the high mountains and the high altitude. I like them long, I like them steep, I like it high. I'm ready.
He is blasting through the thin air, still chasing Warren Barguil. Lawrence de Plus now will be waiting for Kruiswijk. It's de Plus off to the left. He's looking across the shoulder. It is every man for himself. The world champion battles on number 62, Alejandro Valverde.
This has now obliterated the breakaway and the group of favourites. Kruiswijk with Thomas in the wheel. Then it is Bookman.
The yellow jersey. He hasn't blown up. He's found his rhythm. He's limiting the damage, but it's still big damage, and there's still a big climb to come at the end of this stage. Plus, there's tomorrow's Richie Port rides away from Julian Alaphilippe.
And you'll see riders at these altitudes. They'll have good moments, bad moments. You've got to ride the roller coaster and just stay at your limit, whatever that is at that particular time. Slow it down, speed it up, hurt yourself as much as you can stand. Get over the top, and Alaphilippe, he'll be hoping he is close enough to descend back towards them. Bernal, he is at the front of the race, Nibali in the wheel. Uran goes with them, and so does Simon Yates.
And now, number 83, that's Lawrence de Plus. He was in the breakaway. He's waiting to work with Kruiswijk. Bernal now catching Warren Barguil. They are at the front of the race. Tête de la course, Nibali with the front row seats. It's then Rigoberto Uran, the defending champion. The hips are rocking and rolling, but so too are everybody else's.
De Plus now for Kruiswijk, the teammates of Jumbo-Visma, trying to set a pace that can start to peg back the Colombian Bernal. He's in the white jersey as best young rider, but this is the one he wants. They've got rid of Julian Alaphilippe. He's 36 seconds behind the front of the race.
At the start of the day, the gap between Bernal and Alaphilippe was 1 minute and 30 seconds. How much time can he make up on the descent?
I think he can make up about 45 or 50 seconds on the descent, but if he's alone or getting no assistance and he gets that headwind through the plateau in Val d'Isère, and then it's not over yet, through the tunnels below Tignes, they drop down further, and there's still a whole climb to come, which finishes at 2,100 metres above sea level.
Number 63, that is Andre Amador. 191, Guillaume Martin. The yellow jersey continues to try to defend. This is Bardet in the polka dot jersey. Just in front of him, yesterday's stage winner, Nairo Quintana. That's 1 and 2 from yesterday, in fact. Flick of the elbow. Any support coming? No.
Bernal, you've started it. You're going to have to finish it. The riders who are with you are interested in one thing only, stage win. You've gone on the attack. Thomas is sitting in the wheel as much as you can on a climb like this of Steven Kruiswijk. They've got Bookman with them. Bernal needs to try and take this one all the way to the end.
It is a bold move by Egan Bernal. He wears white as the best young rider. He's one of the youngest riders in the race. In fact, he's the youngest remaining rider in the race. And look at the speed he's now picking up. It flattens out ever so slightly here, and this looks close to 30 kilometres per hour for Bernal.
Little flatter section, 3.5 kilometres from the top. Bernal getting things wound up. Guillaume Martin, flick of the elbow. Julian Alaphilippe. This is no acting anymore, Julian Alaphilippe. This is everything he has got. He's got to fight to the top of this climb, use his skills on the descent, see if he can get himself back in touch.
All it is an act of courage from Julian Alaphilippe. There's no faking it now. 4 kilometres for him still to climb. He's almost 800 metres behind Egan Bernal.
When Julien Alaphilippe first took the yellow jersey, and even when he retook it from Ciccone, he never imagined he'd be in this position so close to the end of the Tour de France and still wearing the maillot jaune. He has fought so gamely, and it's not over yet. They have not got him beaten.
Well, many thought that number 61, Nairo Quintana, would go on to become the first Colombian to win the Tour de France. Now, it's the man in white, Egan Bernal, who is in the box seat. He moves to within 35 seconds of yellow, and he's 25 in front of the defending champion, his teammate.
This is really important. The work being done here by Laurens de Plus for Steven Kruijswijk, and the man who can take big advantage of what's happening is Geraint Thomas, also bookman, not with the responsibility, but whoever has to chase, they'll have Geraint Thomas sitting in the wheel and ready to accelerate if they could possibly get back towards Bernal. It's falling into place for Ineos. They've never been in this position in the Tour de France before. They've always had the yellow jersey by the back end. They've had to change the tactics. So far, it's working.
And if they do win, it could prove to be the most satisfying, because it's been the one where they've had the biggest odds stacked against them. Wout Poels sticks to the group with the yellow jersey. How much will Wout Poels be encouraging Bernal, giving the information? The yellow jersey is chasing, but he's struggling. Keep going.
Certainly giving the information. Also, the sports director in the car, in the passenger seat, he'll be watching the feed of the race, knowing exactly what's going on, whatever the gaps are. Important if everything does come back together. Wout Poels, possibly more work to do, light things up again and relaunch the attacks on the final climb to Tignes.
Vincenzo Nibali has been dropped from this leading group. It's now down to 4. Behind Bernal, it's Barguil, Uran, Yates. This is an image from a couple of moments ago because Vincenzo Nibali is no longer there.
If this group of 4 go over the top together, they're within 2 kilometres of the summit now. Bernal really needs the cooperation, but Yates and Barguil thinking only stage win. Rigoberto Uran, surely he must ride with his countrymen. So much to gain for Uran, being off the front here. Others blowing up behind. He can really improve his position, or does he gamble heavily and just sit on Bernal and go for it all?
Well, he knows the answer to that, because he's 9th overall. He's 5:33 behind. So the podium is even a long way away for Rigoberto Uran.
Laurens de Plus is holding this gap. 16 seconds.
Rigoberto Uran, there's the answer. He won't be working, not because he doesn't want to, because he can't. And Warren Barguil is back to the Barguil of the past. This is impressive. He's climbing now into the top 10 overall.
No sign from Uran, but he is now gone. Yates, he is on the tail of the group. And Warren Barguil, the French champion, what a renaissance.
Egan Bernal. Just a little check onto the race radar. Nibali now being caught by Laurens de Plus. The gap, well, we can see the pink colours that foreshortens it, because that's Rigoberto Uran, and he's just off the back. What's going through the mind of number 1?
But the gap's going out. We saw Uran pop, and the gap's gone from 16 to 20 now between the two groups. Julien Alaphilippe now at 1:16. Egan Bernal is closing in, almost virtual leader of this tour.
12 seconds, 11 seconds. That's the gap for Bernal to move from white to yellow. Monte Group Goubert team car there for Guillaume Martin. 2 kilometres to the top of the climb for the chasing group, being led by Laurens de Plus.
The signs were there yesterday. They started late. Barguil is now dropped. So the pace of Egan Bernal over the top of the turn of Barguil may be a little bit optimistic from the Frenchman. But he battles on.
A little rush of blood. Simon Yates is still just sticking to the wheel of Bernal like glue.
Simon Yates, a proven Grand Tour winner already, winning the Vuelta last year. The ideal companion for Egan Bernal. One for the stage, one for the yellow. The question is, will Yates work with him?
Wout Poels has just attacked the yellow jersey of Julien Alaphilippe to try and work his way back to Geraint Thomas to support him. And that'll be disheartening for Julien Alaphilippe.
Julien Alaphilippe was going into this stage expecting exactly this. He went into yesterday's stage expecting things to unravel like this and be attacked from a long way out. They started pretty late, but they saw the signs they wanted, got confirmation of the correct tactic, and today they've started on time and they're riding him out of yellow, because there it is, 1.5 minutes to Egan Bernal,
who is the virtual race leader. The yellow jersey is starting to fray.
The yellow jersey is being pulled from the shoulders of Julien Alaphilippe. He's now 2 seconds down. Bernal, virtual race leader of the Tour de France.
The Colombians, they've been so close to winning the Tour in the past. Second place finishes with Fabio Parra back in the 1980s. Quintana has been in second. He's been third. Last year, Bernal was the revelation of the race. He's now the virtual race leader, and his teammate, the defending champion, is at 33 seconds.
For so long, Laurens de Plus was able to hold that gap at 16. We saw them pop at the front. Uran was gone. Barguil got dropped. And then the gap also opening that second group on the road. Bernal, the man for the high altitude climbs. He called it days ago. I'm ready for this.
Yates just threw his water bottle off the bike. Didn't take a mouthful. The psychological, the one that was on his bike, he just got rid of it. He doesn't want any extra weight.
All ballast overboard. There'll be soigneurs at the top of the mountain. Take on a fresh bottle, tackle the descent. And if these two can work together, well, Yates, he's in trouble.
It was a sign that he was getting desperate. Egan Bernal is now on his own. Yates will keep fighting. He's a good descender.
And they're almost at the top. But when it hits you at these altitudes, it hits you fast, it hits you hard.
Back.
Here's soigneurs at the top. So this shows how close we are to the top. This is where they start to hand jackets, bidons, etc.
This is the move by Wout Poels to get away from the yellow jersey and back to Geraint Thomas.
Well, look at the differential there. 8 kilometres an hour faster as he tries to jump across, but it's a long way across. At that point, it was 1:16 to the group of Alaphilippe to the front, and it was 40 seconds to the group of Thomas.
This is at the 1 kilometre marker from the top of the climb. Just inside a kilometre still to climb for Egan Bernal. There's Yates, keeps on fighting.
In the background, we're hearing race radio. Alaphilippe is on his own. Pouls has gone. Alaphilippe has dropped the rest. He continues his chase, and he's never looked forward to a descent more than this one off the Col d'Isère. 2,770 metres above sea level, 1 kilometre to the top for the chasing group, still led by Laurens de Plus. Well, when does Kruijswijk come out of his shell?
There's no panic. They're banking on Bernal being by himself through the Valley Road, and then they can work together, completely isolated in every sense of the word, but still fighting bravely. This is everything that's in the tank for Julien Alaphilippe.
Well, you can see the last drops in the tank are hanging from the chin for Julien Alaphilippe. The yellow dream at the moment looks to be coming to an end. Don't count him out yet.
But it's yellow that Bernal is getting his hands onto. He's now the virtual race leader, and he's the virtual race leader by 17 seconds. He started in second place overall, 5 seconds in front of Geraint Thomas, mind you, in third.
And you can just imagine the scenes in Colombia. People gathered around big screens and TVs to watch the exploits of this young man in the white jersey, best young rider of the Tour. Forget best young rider, best rider.
He is the best rider at the moment.
And he is in pain.
Absolutely.
Head wobbling on the shoulders.
This is self-inflicted, but it is worth it. Egan Bernal is on his way to a historic moment in Colombian and world cycling. Rigoberto Uran now. He's about to be caught by the de Plus-led group as Mikel Landa behind them is fighting his way back.
Vincenzo Nibali on the back of this group behind Bookman. In front of him, Geraint Thomas, #1 defending champion. Kruijswijk still content to sit behind Laurens de Plus. What a good buy he has been for Jumbo-Visma. Julien Alaphilippe.
Ironically, formerly of the Koenig Quick-Step. Last year, he was a teammate of Alaphilippe. Almost at the top. This is the souvenir Henri de Grange, but it's the souvenir maillot jaune that he wants in Paris. That is the focus for Bernal.
40 seconds to the group, Thomas. It was more like 1:40 something to Julien Alaphilippe and growing. Well, there it is, 156, in fact, top of the screen now to Julien Alaphilippe.
Souvenir Henri de Grange across the highest peak of the Tour de France. Appropriately, it is the brilliant Colombian climber, Egan Bernal. 2,770 metres above sea level. Landa fights his way back to the group containing Geraint Thomas. Also in the group is Bookman, who's now up to 5th place overall. Kruijswijk getting organised, so too De Plus. Thomas just avoiding the hand of the Soignier from Jumbo-Visma. These are desperate moments for the Dutch outfits. De Plus has got himself the position, the title of the best Belgian climber.
Far and away. The question over the top here, who does what? It's the vest on for Steven Kruijswijk.
He knows these roads. His training camp, his altitude camps were all based around here. He spent more than 10 days in this region, multiple times doing today's key climbs. Over the top they go, and the gap is 55 seconds.
And the big question is, who does what? Do they all just sit on and let Jumbo-Visma do the work?
They can't afford to. And Landa wants to go through to the front. Landa straight through. Business-like. That's smart by Mikel Landa. Can't afford to wait around because Bernal's not waiting for them. And he's quickly out to 1 minute.
They lost themselves precious seconds over the top, pushing so hard all the way and then sitting up to put jackets on. You're losing seconds.
And they all count.
And he'll say, listen, you're riding for yellow, concentrate on your job, I'll concentrate on mine. You get me there, I'm going to see if I can hang on to you.
Matt White is the sports director for Mitchelton Scott, the team of Simon Yates. You know Matt well. What do you think he's telling Simon Yates to do?
He'll be ruthless in this situation. They've got 1 minute and 10 seconds. He'll say, don't be too generous with your efforts to a guy who's just dropped you on the last climb. You've got plenty of climbing to come up to Tignes. See what's happening with the gap. Maybe give a little bit of assistance, the odd turn, the short turn. Just keep the momentum of the duo. Don't match him pedal stroke for pedal stroke.
We're hearing that there is ice and mud on the road from the glacier.
There it is. That is ice across the road as they come down off the mountain.
Fingers crossed for safety. Well, this is not far away from where the riders are right now. Race Radio is continuing to communicate about this to the rest of the peloton and letting them know of the risk that lies ahead. And Egan Bernal, well, he's taking time on the descent. He's out to 1 minute and 10 seconds ahead now of the Geraint Thomas group. 2:05. Alaphilippe is closing slightly to the Thomas group.
There is chat on Race Radio about what to do with the conditions further down. There is ice and mud across the road from the glacier, and there is talk from the organisation about possibly a neutralisation or stopping the race. At this moment, that will put Egan Bernal in the yellow jersey. They can't possibly neutralise this race. That is the storm that has ripped through here. Yesterday it was rain at these altitudes. That has turned to ice and snow.
Oh, this is extraordinary. The Tour de France, it always throws up surprises. This is one of the biggest as they're snow ploughing to try and clear the road. Phenomenal. Race organisers down on motorbikes. Vehicles everywhere trying to get more information through. The yellow jersey continues to fight.
Well, this is a further 10 kilometres. What to do? They're trying to clear that ice from the road.
5 kilometres away from Bernal. And
well,
it's on the way down.
They need to make a quick decision. Stopping the stage immediately, coming over Race Radio. They are taking the time at the summit of the Col d'Isère.
Race Radio, Robbie and I have stopped talking because we've been tuning into Race Radio. They have just informed all of the teams. Christian Prudhomme is now on Race Radio, saying they are stopping the stage and giving all the time gaps from the top of that climb that they just went over the top of, the summit of the Col d'Iseran. And that puts Egan Bernal into the yellow jersey, and it makes him the stage winner.
The stage is being abandoned. The message not yet through to Egan Bernal. They have said, team directors, tell your riders, the stage is being stopped. The result taken on top of the Col d'Iseran. The gap at that point puts Bernal in yellow. And I've never seen anything like it.
And the riders still do not know. You can see Yates and Bernal, they were on the communication, just getting the news from the team. Now the police have come through. Alaphilippe knows. And he's disappointed because he saw an opportunity perhaps to get back in contention and save the yellow jersey. That's how he's reading it. Yates is not happy. He wants to keep racing. So too does Bernal.
Had he known the finish was on top of the Iseran, different result. If they'd both known, I say no.
No. If they'd both known, no.
Now they know. Incredible scenes here. They're riding on dry roads. The riders will not yet understand why they have taken this decision. A little bit further down, they'll come to realise very well why.
Well, the conditions for them, they seem fine. They don't even have rain jackets on. This is incredible, unprecedented. This is why it's for safety reasons.
It's still snowing. You see the snow plough here at the moment, and there was still snow blowing through. Arguments, disagreements. Uran saying, I don't care what you say, I'm going to keep racing. The decision has been made.
Yeah, Rigoberto Uran, though, smartly, he wants to make sure he's making, as he's arguing now with Vincenzo Nibali, I think Vincenzo's trying to communicate to Rigoberto what's happening. Rigoberto's not buying it, and he wants to get on with the race. And Vincenzo, well, he's taken offence to it. Here's Christian Prudhomme coming forward.
They still have no idea of the conditions ahead of them. He's now explaining the stage has finished. There's absolutely incredible scenes. But the riders will eventually, when they get there and they see, or they see the pictures and know what they were going to be confronted with. And it's happened really low down. They are at the bottom of the major part of the descent. They're about to come in onto the valley road down into Val d'Isère.
The conditions here at the finish line, which is higher in altitude to where that snow is, are fine. The conditions are perfectly fine here at the finish line.
Well, this will be discussed for days, weeks, months and years.
Forever in the history of cycling. Simon Yates isn't happy with the decision, but the decision will not be changed. Once they've made the call, they can't revert.
No, they can't go back. The only other option was the possibility of neutralising through that section,
as they
applying the time gaps that were on top of the mountain.
And they've done this before in Milan-San Remo a few years ago because of the snow.
It does change the face of the race, though. If someone can then get to a certain spot and then start with the time gap that was there, but they've had time to freshen up, restart the chase, get organised within a group.
There's no other road, but at Milan-San Remo when it happened, they put the riders in the buses to get through the section of the snow and the risk.
Well, unfortunately, this is a huge anticlimax for the stage.
And you can see the confusion within this group. They're all asking the question, what is happening? The white jersey, number 2, Egan Bernal, is the new leader of the Tour de France with 1 day remaining in the Alps.
Stage winner and yellow jersey. That was a big smile on his face.
Not the way he wanted it.
Still a bit confused, and certainly not the way he would have wanted it.
But out of his control.
But he has done exactly what he needed to do right up until the point where that decision was made.
So the stage is not Saint-Jean-de-Maurienne to Tignes, it's Saint-Jean-de-Maurienne to the Col d'Iseran.
I think in the interest of rider safety and the amount of ice and snow that was on that section,
you would rather make the wrong call that is cautious than the wrong call that is over-ambitious when safety is at stake.
and they're not down there yet. It's around the tunnels. It's just below Tignes, along the edges of the lake down here. As one I spoke about earlier, they're dark tunnels. Then you come out, it was already wet. That you can deal with.
These guys haven't seen the images. They're at a complete loss.
And it has been quite warm here today. It's feasible that by the time they get there, it's just turned to water.
And Alejandro Valverde, he just wants to make sure. He wants to go back across to the group that includes Geraint Thomas. And now, Alaphilippe to have the conversation with one of the race vehicles.
And he will be complaining, I haven't had a chance to defend my jersey. I was riding my tempo. I was relying on coming back on the descent, fighting on the last climb. Of course, this is out of the control of the race organisation.
The course is stopped. Times will be taken from the summit of the Col d'Iseran.
Geraint Thomas also doesn't get his chance to take advantage of the work of the riders in the group with him, and then try to attack out of that and see if he could still win the Tour de France. So the organisation is saying they're going to try and stop all the riders in Val d'Isère, that no one rides through that section covered in snow and ice, and get the team vehicles down there to pick up the riders. So all the teams are up here in Tignes. All the team buses, they're all staying up here tonight. So they have to get down there, pick up their riders and transport them through here to the original finish line in Tignes. So confusion reigns in the peloton. Many riders starting to understand and come to grips with what this means for their race.
There's Richie Port. I like the rainbow jersey, the black rain jacket of Alejandro Valverde.
Style. Still no sign here now. Wet roads. These were the two leaders at the top of the climb. They are now into Val d'Isère. This is where the storm has ripped through, and at the moment they'll still be thinking to themselves, it's only water. What on earth is going on?
1 week ago, the concern was about snow at the top of the Col d'Iseran. It was fine. It was clear up there. It's 700 metres lower down in terms of altitude where the snow is causing the problem.
And at the moment, the chasing group a minute behind. They are still on absolutely dry roads. So that storm has just hit the valley in Val d'Isère, and it's further down towards Tignes that it has then dumped snow and ice.
It's still fine here at the finish line.
Well done to Christian Prudhomme and his team from the organisation of the Tour de France, along with the UCI commissaires. Look at the flow of icy water coming across the road. They have made the right decision.
A brave decision, but yes, the right decision. And that's the man that made the call, Christian Prudhomme, the one with all the pressure on his shoulders. There's Nicolas Portal with the cap on backwards. He's the sports director for Ineos, and things have gone well for the team. We need to go back to the top of the climb and start to get the time gaps as they did go over the top.
It was something around 2 minutes to Julian Alaphilippe.
The gap between at the top of the climb, the gap was roughly from Bernal to the Thomas group of 1:09, and from Bernal to the Alaphilippe group around 2:03. They're our guesstimates. It's not science. We'll wait for confirmation, but that's roughly what it was at that point. Look at this.
Really important to show these pictures. It'll be really important to show these pictures to the riders involved and those thinking they're hard done by with this decision.
And Rigoberto Urán, I'm trying to interpret that.
Sarcasm.
Yeah, it was. That's what I thought. But Simon Yates was one of the ones complaining.
Right,
if he sees this, when he sees this, he might go back to Christian Prudhomme and go from abuse to a handshake and thank you.
I still think nonetheless he'll see this and say, okay, I get it. I understand. Right decision, but he would have loved to have seen that decision taken a little bit earlier to give him a fighting chance of winning a third stage.
Well, we don't know when this happened, though.
Well, very, very... I mean, they've had to make a decision so very quickly.
Yeah.
And it was dumping down as they were cresting the top of the Issarin. You've got to wait and see how much comes down. Can we clear it on time? Will it melt? It's an incredibly difficult decision to make under the pressure of the race coming at you, with the riders screaming down the descent from the Issarin.
And Nairo Quintana at the top of the climb of the Issarin was at roughly 2 minutes and 55. So the time gap's given at the top of the climb between Bernal and his rivals. It was 55 seconds. That was to the Thomas group. To the Alaphilippe group, or Alaphilippe on his own, was 2:04. That's based on the TV pictures. That's to be firmed by the race commissaires. So that puts Bernal 1 minute in front of Geraint Thomas in the race for the yellow jersey. 34 seconds ahead of Juliana Alaphilippe in the race for yellow as well. So at the moment, based on our calculations, the general classification is Egan Bernal first. Second, Alaphilippe at 34 seconds. Third, Geraint Thomas at 1 minute. And let's not forget Bookman and Kruijswijk still inside the top 5. And Alaphilippe, bitterly disappointed.
You know what this has done? This has kept Julien Alaphilippe in the race to win the Tour de France. If they had kept this going, this GC would have been completely blown apart. It has served to keep things tight at the top. Those gaps would have been much bigger.
Dowsett, I should say, De Bruyne and Alex Dowsett, they're in real danger of being outside the time delay if the stage continued. What happens to the time delay?
Well, they're in real danger now because the stage has been shortened.
Do they apply the time delay?
So many questions.
So few answers.
Why does this keep on happening?
This is incredible.
Looking outside our window of our commentary booth here, we're at 50 metres from what was supposed to be the finish line. Dumbfounded looks. Confusion reigns.
Complete confusion amongst the spectators. Complete confusion within the media compound. So all the television networks, they've got another hour or so where they're figuring, well, we're going to be covering this stage of the tour, through to the podium presentations, the yellow jersey, etc. They're trying to work out what they do now. And what happens with the presentation?
They'll have to do the presentation up here. They'll get Egan Bernal into a car and get him up here pronto, the rest of the jersey wearers. Your guess is as good as mine. Could be a late night post-stage presentation here in Tignes.
Wow.
You've got to feel for the organisers locally up here in Tignes as well.
Who've invested so much in the race. Christian Prudhomme still looking at the telephone, searching for answers, as no doubt many of you will also be doing.
Well, as confusion reigns here, if you do want to see one of the major reasons they've had to stop this stage, I just tweeted that photo on Twitter. Have a look. My handle is at McEwen Robbie, McEwen Robbie. Photo's just gone up.
Sport delivering every single emotion possible. Egan Bernal, he's on a high. He's in the yellow jersey. He's 45 seconds in front of Julian Alaphilippe. The defending champion, the teammate of Bernal, Geraint Thomas, is in third place. The green jersey is all but secured for Peter Sagan. He needs to get through one more day of climbing and then perhaps another stage win in Paris. King of the Mounts classification, it's not done with yet, but it's the Frenchman Romain Bardet who sits at the top of the table. and the white jersey that also belongs to Egan Bernal with a commanding lead ahead of David Goudou. This is all that remains in the race for yellow in the Alps, and who knows, this race might come down to Paris. It starts in Albertville, it goes through to Val Thorens, 130 kilometres, and the final climb is 33.4 k's long to an altitude of 2,365 metres, and it will be the Colombian Egan Bernal in yellow. The Tour de France, it isn't simply man against man, it's man versus Mother Nature. And yesterday, on a dramatic 19th stage of the Tour de France, Mother Nature had her say. But it is a Colombian who has assumed the overall race lead as Egan Bernal has moved into the Maillot Jaune ahead of the Frenchman Julien Alaphilippe with one more big day of climbing to come. Impact of Mother Nature, the riders in shock as they were told that the stage would be cancelled. But the time gaps, they were taken at the top of the previous climb.
What counts for us is security. The times were taken manually at Col d'Iseran, and that's why there's the general classification. Differences have been made in sporting terms on the Iseran, and then we tried to warn the riders as quickly as possible. Naturally enough, they couldn't understand. They were putting the effort in and couldn't understand even more so because it was localized. Sending them into danger was something we couldn't do.
The frustration was evident. Alaphilippe had lost the yellow jersey. Egan Bernal had moved into the lead. But once they'd all seen the images, then they understood. The Colombians were celebrating, and it was an emotional moment as Egan Bernal hugged his dad. Onto the podium, not for the first time, but definitely for the first time in the yellow jersey, with just 2 days awaiting. And then it's into Paris, potentially to be the first Colombian to win the biggest bike race in the world.
Oh, it is simply amazing. I think it's something that I've been dreaming of.
Amarillo.
Stage 20, and it is an abbreviated course. It was meant to be 130 kilometres. It's been reduced to just 59 kilometres. They start in Albertville, go direct to the climb itself, and here is a look at the topography that they will be confronted with. It's a climb of 33 kilometres. It goes in 3 sections. It starts with brutal ramps. There's a little bit of respite in the middle. It kicks up once again. There's another slight backing off before they reach the finish line at 2,300 metres above sea level. Hello and welcome to the final big battle for the yellow jersey. Places on the podium also at stake. Top 10, well, that's to be decided as well. This is the final day in the Alps before the race heads to Paris. Matthew Keenan with you, joined by Robbie McEwen. And Robbie, in all your years covering the Tour de France, yesterday will be one of the ones that will stick in your memory, I imagine, forever.
In the few short years, about 6 that I've been covering the Tour, and certainly out of the 12 that I rode, that will be a day that will really stick in the memory. It was just incredible scenes to witness what happened, but when we come down to it, the right decision was made. It was correct on behalf of the riders' safety, and I think the way they handled it, where they took the time measurements on the top of the Col de l'Iseran, was also the right thing to do. The race was exploding, and It wasn't an if Julien Alaphilippe hadn't made his move yet. I think for Julien Alaphilippe, it was actually only going to get worse. Under these circumstances, he is still in the game. We see a new yellow jersey for the first time in almost 2 weeks. But it's not game over yet.
It's not. The advantage is just 45 seconds ahead of Julien Alaphilippe, but it's not game over for Julien Alaphilippe in terms of even having a spot on the podium inside the top 3.
He can move forwards. Chances are slim. He can definitely move backwards. And there are riders lurking. A guy like Steven Kruijswijk, who said after yesterday, I hadn't made my move yet. Certainly, he's got to try today to get himself on the podium. He needs to get rid of Julien Alaphilippe and take over a spot on the podium.
He was one of the riders really disappointed yesterday with the stage being cut short. He's not the only one, but significantly, he'd laid his strategy out around the final climb in Tignes, where he'd done 10 days in altitude training prior to this year's tour. That was one of the places that he based himself. So he knew the course like the back of his hand. But Mother Nature had her say.
She did. And that last climb, make no mistake, that was very, very difficult. The last 5 kilometres was fairly gradual, but the first 4 kilometres of it were really brutal, very steep, rough road, and that's why I maintain the worst wasn't over for Julien Alaphilippe. Had the race continued and got to that climb, I think he would have lost a lot more.
We'll never know. The debate will continue forever and a day. It depends on exactly who you speak to, what nationality they come from,
who they're a fan of. Yep,
very different views.
And I honestly don't have a preference between Bernal or Julien Alaphilippe winning the Tour de France. Both great winners, both very deserving. In fact, I would have loved it if Julien Alaphilippe could have hung on and won the Tour de France. I didn't want him to get ridden out of the yellow jersey, but the fact remains that the strongest rider over this tour is in front.
He proved that significantly on the stage where it was his compatriot, Nairo Quintana, that won in the way that he attacked to the top of the Galibier. And if others had the legs to go with him, to stick with him, they would have at that very moment.
So they already got the message. They saw what he did on the Galibier. He then did the same on the Isère. They just could not go with him. He is simply better. The best thing that Egan Bernal can do today is ride for the stage win.
Treat it as a one-day bike race. And it can potentially be the biggest day in his young career. Starting in Albertville for the 5th time in the history of the Tour de France, a town that is best known as the host of the 1992 Winter Olympics, which was, as many of you would know, the last year that the Winter Olympics and the Summer Olympics were held in the same year. Inside the last minute for the countdown to roll out throughout the neutral zone. The neutral zone today will be short, so it won't take long before the flag comes in and the racing will be on. Another Tour de Colombians at the back, number 91, Rigoberto Urán, alongside him, Nairo Quintana. Rigoberto Urán sits in 7th place overall. Nairo Quintana is in 8th position. The final countdown by the locals in Albertville.
Continuez de filmer, mais ensemble, on va décompter à partir de 10 jusqu'à 0 pour envelopper d'abord les meilleurs coureurs cyclistes de la planète Terre qui sont sur vos routes, qui sont sur nos routes. Dans 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
They're rolling out into the neutral zone. It's just 3 kilometres today, the neutral zone. 24 degrees in Albertville, hosting the stage start. 18 degrees at the finish line, but the clouds have opened a few times already throughout the morning. Some significant rainfalls. The good news is that there's no descending on the stage today, so safety being the primary concern of the riders and everybody involved in the race, including the spectators. The race organisers didn't want to put the spectators up on the Cormet de Roselon, where there was a landslide last night, and it is impassable. So they've made the right decision. The race continues.
Yep, the heavy machinery is up there on the Cormet de Roselon. Will not be used today. You can see how optimistic the riders are as they roll off the start. Short sleeves, no jackets, and reports are down there it's been quite nice for most of the morning. We're up here on the mountain. We had an early storm roll through. It cleared fairly quickly, and we were optimistic. And then the next storm rolled in and lasted for more than an hour. It dumped fresh snow on the highest peaks around Val Thorens. There was hail. There was so much water running down the road. You could have whitewater rafted down the course. And I'd like to give a shout out to my local club, the Gold Coast Cycling Club, and everybody who has entered the Darren Smith Classic, which takes place tomorrow. So they've been running for a lot of years. There's some big names on the trophy throughout its history. And I just want to wish everybody the best, and also Darren's family, his mum and dad, Jane and Dennis, and his brother Adrian, and everybody who's been involved in putting the race on and keeping Darren's legacy alive through the running of the race, and for everyone who's supporting. So good luck to everybody. Thanks for coming. I wish you a really safe and successful race tomorrow in the Darren Smith Classic on the Gold Coast.
We wish them all the best, and I echo Robbie's sentiments, and no doubt many of you who are watching the coverage have also been touched by tragedies in the sport. Our thoughts are with you as well. And it was throughout the Tour de France back in 2005 where Amy Gillett, previously Amy Safe, was tragically killed whilst training with the Australian national team at a race in Germany, in preparation for a race in Germany. 6 riders off the front, a group of 6 riders trying to go across. The gap is just 30 seconds. Here are our 6 leaders. Magnus Cort Nielsen from the Astana team. He's got a teammate trying to come across. This is Dylan Torrance, who's already won a stage, back on stage 6 to La Planche de Belleville, and so much has happened. And now Nairo Quintana back with the team car is a lot better than seeing him back with the race doctor. Is that just an issue perhaps with the race radio that he's trying to sort out? Hard to work out from that angle.
Can't see quite what they're playing about with there, but doesn't look like it's anything serious. Maybe just a communication issue with the race radio.
He's had some communication issues throughout the race.
Well, there have been communication issues. Maybe not so much communication issues, but just being on the same wavelength.
Yeah. It wasn't because of a technical fault. They seem much more united now. In the opening, we heard from Christian Prudhomme, but the man that designs the course each year is Thierry Gouvenou, former professional cyclist, and he has also spoken about the drama of yesterday and also the course changes of today. Let's now hear from Thierry Gouvenou.
Yesterday we were forced to take the decision because of a small 2-kilometre section. It wasn't easy to predict. We're not out of danger of the same thing happening today. The weather is capricious and a lot of storms have been predicted for the finish at Val Thorens. If we have to take the same decisions as yesterday, then we'll be obliged to take them. The truth is that if the road is blocked by a landslide or because of hail or snow, then the only solution is to reduce the stage length. I hope that won't happen. I hope we'll be able to go up to the summit even if the conditions are difficult. We know it won't be easy and there'll be rain around. I just hope we won't have the hail or the landslide and we'll be able to go up to the summit.
Must have been incredibly stressful for Thierry Gouvenou, Christian Prudhomme, the UCI representatives as well, to make the decision on today's stage where they had just a little bit more time to think about it, and they've gone with a strategy that ensures there's no descending and it should be safe all the way through to the finish. I think it will be safe, and the sun's even coming out as Ali Viviani, Robbie, is in the breakaway.
Gets himself in the break, does a few turns, hopefully for him opens up a decent gap, and he'll just be able to cruise his way up to the finish, not worrying about a time limit, because he will be thinking about tomorrow in Paris.
What's the role?
There's really nothing he can do, surely.
What's the role he could do for Julian Alaphilippe other than have a fresh bidon and an extra carbohydrate gel or something along those lines to hand over to him when he comes flying past? Because as good as Viviani is, he won't be climbing with Alaphilippe once they get to Val Thorens.
The gap won't be very big when they get to the bottom of the climb. The good climbers in this group will push on and drop Elia Viviani, which means the peloton will be coming at him pretty soon. That means Julien Alaphilippe will have to attack very early on the climb to make any use of Elie Viviani to set some pace, even for a short distance. And then Team Ineos would just wind him back in if he goes so far from the finish. So, no. He's out here just to save his legs for tomorrow, easily within the time limit.
And there's Bonifacio, the sprinter that we spoke about earlier on, in a similar position, sitting in second last wheel. In terms of this group of riders, these are the second group of riders on the road. The best placed overall is Sebastian Reichenbach, the Swiss national champion, and he's at 40 minutes and 45 seconds behind. And from that front group of 6 riders, well, the best place is Dylan Torrance, who's at 1 hour and 40 minutes behind. So thus far, for Ineos, it's all playing into their hands. This is Nelson Oliveira from Movistar. They are comfortable leaders in the team's classification. Gorka Izagirre then rolls over him from the Astana team. Mikhail Kwiatkowski into a familiar position into the Alps, defending the yellow jersey. And for the Ineos team, formerly known as Team Sky, if Egan Bernal does win this race, and he's in the prime position to do so, that will make it 4 different winners from the same team since 2012. That is extraordinary. Number 81 at the back of the peloton. Here's Steven Kruijswijk, just getting a few adjustments done before the business end of the stage for him. Hearing from some of the debutants of this year's Tour de France, Robbie, does it take you back to your in 1997?
It does. You're coming in, although you're experienced in racing a bike and have done hundreds, if not thousands of races, your first Tour de France is something completely new. And I can understand the trepidation, the excitement, the nervousness.
This is the second group on the road with Viviani at the rear of the group. They're just 14 seconds away from catching the 6 leaders. When you made that first appearance in 1997, did you ever think that would lead to being inducted into the Australian Sports Hall?
No. I think as an athlete, you concentrate so hard on what you're doing, trying to get it right, trying to win, that you honestly do not think about those sort of things. But, yeah, it was announced today that's a huge honour.
So congratulations to Robbie McEwen. Championships, multiple Olympic Games, the list goes on. More than 100 and how many professional victories?
I'm not sure what the official is. I don't know.
Congratulations. 40 kilometres to go. They're not too far away from hitting the base of the climb.
And they'll know, with having 2 minutes, they can't hang around and just tempo on the early slopes. They have to race it all the way up.
And even with the quality of the riders, Michael Woods is amongst them. Steve Cummings has managed to make the move for the first time. There he is, number 203. Also in this group for the Movistar team, Vincenzo Nibali.
Nibali was very good yesterday in the break all day long at the front when the favourites came up on the Iseran. I've been checking the radar as usual, Matt, and it looks like we are coming into a clearer patch. That the next front doesn't move quickly enough and it arrives after the finish of the race.
Let's hope that that is the case. This is Mikhail Kwiatkowski, the former world champion, protecting the man that last year was the young sensation of the race. This year is simply the sensation of the race. Number 2, Egan Bernal. Started the race as the second youngest rider in this year's Tour.
I'll be very surprised if anyone can ride him out of the yellow jersey.
Tim Wellens and Thomas De Gendt trying to go across to the breakaway at 2 minutes and 14 seconds. Tim Wellens in the King of the Mountains classification is currently in second place, 12 points behind Romain Bardet.
So keep the pace on now to stop them swarming from behind. Job done, both by Ineos on first. Don't mess with the sprint lead-out man when it comes to position. And we probably won't see much more of him until tomorrow, 500 metres of the stage.
But he has played his role and he's played it well. And you're right, don't mess with the sprinter if you're a climber and you're coming into a hairpin turn like that one. As this is Janssen, followed by Turnesen. 2 of the lead-out riders in the sprint for Dylan Groenewegen, doing exactly what Jumbo-Visma needs to do.
They need to wear down Julien Alaphilippe, make it as hard as possible for the entire climb to the attack. The pure climber, Kruiswijk, and he will be also riding on frustration after yesterday because he hadn't yet made his move.
More riders being distanced at the back of the race. 1-4-2. This is Nikias Arndt from Sunweb. Ivan Garcia Cortina from Bahrain Merida as his teammate. The first yellow jersey is the rider who is setting the tempo. That is Mike Turnison at the head of the peloton. What is left will be thrown onto the road to... This is Thomas de Gendt, just 33 seconds in front of the yellow jersey group.
I think the rest will catch Thomas de Gendt.
Yeah, that job, though, that was done by Janssen, that's all he had, but he gave what he had.
Really important.
That is Mosk on number 5.
He rode to the foot of the climb along with Michał Kwiatkowski. You would have expected him to maybe last in this tour.
Also tells us how quick the tempo is that's been set by Jumbo-Visma. 1:68 from doing the work for de Gendt is already off in the distance. That was Michael Matthews. This is Michał Kwiatkowski, another important rider for Ineos.
So the two riders who set the pace to the foot of the climb for Ineos, they are both gone. So it will be over now to Castelviejo. But at the moment, they just have to sit in and bide their time because it's Jumbo-Visma who are the aggressors at the moment. Just trying to come across to our leading two of Zakarin and Vincenzo Nibali.
Zakarin at the front, Vincenzo Nibali in second position. 30 kilometres remaining on the stage. In fact, just a little bit less than that. Zakarin looks across. Nibali tries to come through. He's offering what he has. Peter Sagan, the green jersey. He will win the green jersey tomorrow for the 7th time in his ball.
The only break in that run of green jerseys was when he was excluded from the Tour along with Mark Cavendish a couple of years ago, 3 years ago now.
The climbing Kiwi, George Bennett now on the front, followed by De Plus. It's then last weekend was the 29th edition of L'Etape du Tour de France, where more than 12,500 cyclists rode on these roads. The stage that the 12,500 recreational cyclists took to last weekend was the stage that this one was meant to be. There was lots of climbing, and the winning time in the men's race was 4 hours and 47 minutes. For the women, it was Edwige Pittel that won the stage in 5 hours and 25 minutes. Former professional cyclist, one of the stars of French cycling throughout her career. This is an event that you can do in many of places around the world. They have them in Brazil. There's one in Australia as well, L'Etape Australia. And Wales, they also host one. Back to the race, Bennett on the front.
So continuing what they started from the bottom of this climb, Jumbo-Visma drops off the rain vest. Well, it's been unnecessary, and the weather forecast updated now says it should stay dry until the finish. Just off the back of the group, no reason to really push himself. And how about trying to put another sheen on that green jersey and win the stage in Paris tomorrow? It's a whole different kind of sprint once you've got your way through the mountains as a pure sprinter.
And he's going to have some very fast men to contend with. Viviani, Ewan and Groenewegen.
And the question is, are they more depleted than Peter Sagan? Has he got a bit more gas in the tank? And will his pure grunt be able to overcome the high-octane sprinters who suffer more in the mountain? But the race does not end with this climb today. It does for the yellow jersey, in effect. Don't expect any changes tomorrow.
There's always that question, why can't there be a race on the final stage? But, Robbie, for a sprinter, it's the most stressful day of the Tour. Maybe the second most stressful. The first one for the sprinters would be the most stressful, I'd imagine.
There is a race on the last day. Yes, they cruise into Paris. They race so fast on the Champs-Élysées. It may look like the group is just all together. You put yourself in amongst there and you'll find out what real suffering is. It's a very hard drag uphill to the Arc de Triomphe, and then it is so quick down the other side. It's really rough on the cobbles of the Champs-Élysées. It is absolutely a race. It's no procession on the Champs.
In the meantime, it is the battle to the top of Val Thorens. This is remnants of the breakaway. Daryl Impey being distanced. So too Magnus. Jerry Roscott was in there in the orange colours for CCC. This is Reichenbach, who's trying to ride across to the leaders. He now finds himself on his own. The Swiss national champion, Pierre-Luc Perrichon, who was the first to go at the base of the climb. He's just been distanced with the increasing of the tempo. This is one of the hairpin corners that you spoke about earlier. Rough road surface, and it is very narrow.
Well, this is that steep section early on the climb. We had said the early part of the climb is quite difficult. Then it eases off. It's a lot more gradual through the middle section. It's the last. Jumbo-Visma are using this section to try and deaden the legs of Julian Alaphilippe, see if Kruijswijk can then offload him later. So it's the first about 6 kilometres that are quite tough.
Number 167, this is Maxime Montfort from Soudal Lotto. 74 that you can see from the Astana team, that's Hugo Houle. 132, there's Julien Bernard. He's been very active in the breakaways for the Trek Segafredo team. Team that sits in second place in that classification, the team's classification. Wout Poels is dangling towards the back of the group. This is Anthony Turgis. He, along with Pierre-Luc Perrichon, were the two to start the action from the breakaway group at the base of the climb. Bennett still applying the pressure, trying to put Julian Alaphilippe to the sword for the second day running. Aiming for a spot on the podium for Steven Kruijswijk. 9-1, under pressure at the back. That is Guillaume Martin. He starts the day in 12th position overall. Jasper Stuyven has only just been dropped by the main peloton of the yellow jersey.
Really strong tour, Jasper Stuyven. Third in Epernay on stage 3. And just keeps on keeping on all the way through the tour. A number of top 10s just with steep kicks up to the line, the flat out bunch sprints. He's been up there. He's tried so hard. He's ridden a really good tour, and always tough to win a stage in the tour when you're not a real specialist of either climbing or sprinting.
He's stuck in the middle.
A bit of snow fell at about 11:30 this morning as we left the commentary position, not to start work already 3 hours before the race, but to come down and have some nice lunch. It was hammering down with rain. On the highest peaks just above Val Thorens, there was fresh snow.
And here's a look at some of the higher peaks. And we're not too far away from Mont Blanc, the highest peak in Europe.
But the weather so fickle here in the Alps. Like yesterday, it poured rain on one particular spot so hard and caused that landslip. In other places, it was still sunny.
That's why the riders had such confusion as to why they were being called to stop.
They couldn't understand. They said, we're racing in the sun. What are you talking about? And even initially on the coverage yesterday, we just saw the ice and snow on the road and thought, okay, dangerous, slippery conditions. What we didn't see on the TV pictures, what we then saw later, was that landslip of ice and mud coming down across the road. It came from Norwegian TV. Former pro Dag Otto Lauritsen had gone to that spot to do a stand-up piece to camera and then told to run for his life by his cameraman as the ice and mud slid across the road and covered it, put it at 70 or 80 centimetres deep.
It was incredible. The man that was in the yellow jersey at the start of the stage yesterday, that was Julian Alaphilippe. He now finds himself in second position overall, back in team kit. Let's now hear from the star Frenchman, Julian Alaphilippe.
I need to fight to the end to still in second position, and yeah, if I arrive on the podium tomorrow, it's amazing for me. If I lose everything, I will still happy, because it was a really special Tour de France for me.
And he does have a fight on his hands.
He's like the middle child, fighting in both directions. He's got to attack on one side to see if he can pull off a miracle. He's got to defend on the other to stop being overtaken by someone that wants to have his podium spot. He's in second at the moment, but hovering right behind Geraint Thomas and Steven Kruijswijk, determined to ride him out of the wheel. Elia Viviani is now sat up, and he is thinking about tomorrow and the Champs-Élysées.
But George Bennett is not. He's just thinking about But what can he do for Steven Kruijswijk? As the yellow jersey, Egan Bernal swings out, takes a look around, perhaps a conversation with Geraint Thomas. He looks at ease.
With the pace setting of George Bennett, I'm quite surprised to see it's still such a large group. Then again, it's only the first climb and the only climb of the day. So fresher legs, it'll take a lot longer to wear them down. But on the upside for George, there's still 23.5 kilometres of climbing to go, and that's for the leaders who are 2 minutes in front.
So he can't ride full gas at this point yet, George Bennett. He's working out how far he needs to get up the climb and what's the fastest he can do from point A to point B. His finish line is not at the finish of the stage. They've worked out where they need him to still stay on the front from, and he'll get to that point empty.
I think he needs to get to 9 kilometres to go if he possibly can, and then from there, Laurens de Plus ramp it up, put everybody in the red, and that's a moment where Kruijswijk can try and go on with it and see if he can ride himself towards the podium.
And let's not forget that on the stage de Valois, George Bennett didn't crash once, but he crashed twice.
Crashed once early on a descent when a rider fell in front of him. That was Nico Roach, and then later he fell on the descent of the Galibier approaching the finish line. So just quite incredible that he's been able to get back on the bike, stay in the race, and even more incredible, he's able to do the pace setting on the front in the mountains still after all of that. It
was a horror day for him, but he is bouncing back, and as he said afterwards, he will fight on. This is the leading group. Zakarin at the front, followed by Tony Galopin, then Pierre-Luc Perichon, then Chenzo Nibali in the red colours of Bahrain Merida. At the back in the pink of EF Education First, it is number 98, the Canadian climber. That is Michael Woods. Interesting to listen to throughout the race, Michael Woods. I like that he owned the crash into Saint-Etienne when he took out Geraint Thomas right behind him. Fortunately, Thomas was uninjured. Woods was injured. And he's spoken really openly about his vulnerability, the challenges of his first tour, and his joy of racing his first tour.
I like how excited he's shown he is to be here, and what an honour it is for him to be riding in the Tour de France. Just having a number on, just being a part of it, let alone what he's been doing out on the road. And he's been trying so hard, got into a number of breaks, and wouldn't that be a story for him to stay away today, the former runner? And you'd have to think he missed his calling early. Pity somebody didn't give him a bike sooner.
It was injuries that curtailed his running career, but he was an Olympic-level runner throughout his career. He still holds the mile record in Canada and the 3,000-metre record. This is the leader of the King of the Mountains classification, Romain Bardet.
I don't want to burst your bubble, but I looked up the Canadian athletics records the other day. Doesn't hold the mile record. Yeah, he's been passed.
Okay, I'll have to scratch that one out of my notes.
I think it's now down to 350.
Really? He was at 354, I think.
Which is still super.
It's crazy fast.
Lucky he started riding a bike.
Yeah. He is brilliant. Kamna still in this group. Roach at the back of the group. Kamna is another one of the young riders that we'll be talking about for a long, long time to come. And we haven't mentioned Bookman yet today. Emmanuel Bookman still holding on to a spot, well placed inside the top 5. He hasn't fired a shot as yet, but he's not that far off, potentially, of getting himself up onto the podium. He's 1 minute and 50 seconds behind Egan Bernal. He finds himself 1 minute and 5 seconds behind Julien Alaphilippe, and he is just 27 seconds behind Steven Kruijswijk. He might be a chance to finish inside the top 3 in Paris tomorrow.
Everyone's still a chance at this point with 22 kilometres to go. Not these guys, though. Up in the high summer grazing area.
The Roquefort cheese in this region is the cheese of choice. And we've gone from the vineyards of the Languedoc region and through Burgundy earlier on in this race, and now we get to a region that is better known for its cheese. And the raclette that they have up here in the Alps is pretty heavy on the stomach, and it makes you collapse into bed at the end of the night.
Lucky you're wearing the elasticated waist.
It's come in handy.
Bad sign for Alaphilippe.
Yeah, and the Vultures today are wearing black and yellow from Jumbo-Visma, and they're ready to swoop. It would be fitting for Alaphilippe to survive and stay on the podium. There's George Bennett. He had one last effort left in him. A round of applause, no doubt, all the way across New Zealand for George Bennett. He has been brilliant right throughout the tour. Take your mind back to day one in Brussels. Bennett was on the front, leading the peloton, chasing the breakaway, so his teammate, Mike Turnison, could eventually win the stage.
Yeah, he's been incredibly active throughout this tour. Also leading your media medal standings, George Bennett. He's always good for a quote. Tough as nails. He's ridden a fantastic tour, and now it's up to his teammate, the Belgian Laurens de Plus, to push the pace for Steven Kruijswijk. Kruijswijk down to one man with 18 kilometres to go. Surely de Plus will be asked to try and get through at least the next 9 kilometres.
He's up the tempo. That's Maxime Bouet in the white colours that they've just caught. He was in the earlier breakaway. We're not going to do the Tour Media Medal votes today. We'll do a double dose tomorrow because there's too much racing. There's too much at stake. There's just 18.1 kilometres left to climb.
1 kilometre to go at 7%, and then it eases right off. 3 kilometres at an average of 2.5%. So the speed will go up. Not an ideal place for de Plus to already have to be setting tempo on the front, giving an easy sit to Julien Alaphilippe. Maybe they'll just ease off, save the legs a little bit, and then punch it up the next.